So the digital society is about to come. Will it be a society of trust? Well, in about a minute we're sending 700,000 Google queries, 500,000 Facebook posts, and that creates a lot of data. And of course, as we move, as we go shopping, that adds to this heap of data too. And people say data is the new oil. And in fact, people have come up with all sorts of fantastic applications, from Siri to real-time translation to real-time trading and all these kind of things, insurance and personalized advertisements and so on. And we can do a lot of things with these data, so we can understand the spreading of scientific innovations and of ideas and of culture and diseases, and also the spreading of international tension or of financial crisis. And so with all this data we can see what is wrong and how to fix the system where it's broken.
So how does Future ICT plan to achieve these goals? To accelerate innovation and knowledge, information and data passes through different stages.
So the idea is basically that we would pull together all this data and get a digital picture of the world. And Chris Anderson then came up with this claim that we would see the end of theory. We wouldn't need science any longer. If we just had enough data, then basically we would see the truth reveal itself. And people have been asking, can we now know everything? Can we build a crystal ball? And could society be run like a giant machine? If we wanted to do that, we would need to know all the pieces. It's you and me and all sorts of organizations and companies and so on. And we would have to figure out how these pieces behave and how they can be controlled. And in fact, this is being done. And they are using artificial intelligence systems. As we know, artificial intelligence is increasing exponentially, and in about 20 years' time, those systems might be more intelligent than people, maybe even before. And so intelligent machines will be our tools, will be helping us to do all sorts of things every day, and then as they become smarter, they will be like teammates and eventually our coaches. The question is, will they be our bosses? And in fact, this is the kind of question that's being looked at MIT and other universities worldwide. And the question is, can we trust the outcome of this? We've seen that we couldn't trust the financial markets. In 2008, there was a major global meltdown. Many companies, many banks have gone bankrupt. And actually that has basically wiped out a value of $14,000 billion. That has been a trust issue. People didn't trust anymore banks. Banks didn't trust banks any longer. Banks didn't trust companies any longer. So trust is valuable. Now, we've believed that artificial intelligence would basically be objective, unbiased, unemotional, and all this, so we could trust these kinds of systems more than humans. But then it turned out that Microsoft's AI chatbot, Tai, was turned into a Nazi within just a day. It was a learning system, and now it could be manipulated. And since then, basically, people are asking, can artificial intelligence be ethical? And experts are saying we need to make algorithms accountable. At the moment, they're not. They don't have an identity. They can do all sorts of things, good and bad things. And we need to ask the question, what does it take to trust data and algorithms? It's great to have a lot of data, but the more data we have, actually, the more patterns we'll find. And a lot of these patterns turn out to be spurious correlations, and be meaningless or even misleading. Like this one, number of serial killers as a function of chocolate consumption. Well, if that was true, there would be quite a few potential serial killers in this room, I guess, and would rather put them to prison just in case. Predictive policing. Now it turns out that it's not so easy actually to fit data to patterns, to identify what is the real pattern behind the data. And it's actually quite difficult to find meaningful causal relationships. It's as difficult as finding a grain of gold in a sense. So this one is a very strong correlation. Number of forest fires as a function of the number of ice cream eating children. Apparently, there's a third factor, external heat, that causes both. But if we just look at correlations, then we would conclude that we would rather put these children in prison to make sure we wouldn't have forest fires any longer. Also, classification errors can easily happen. So we want to distinguish good from bad risks. Banks want to do that, insurance companies, secret services, but usually data are overlapping. And as a result, there will be errors of first kind and second kind. And in fact, we've seen recently that algorithms are often discriminating people, women, for example, or people of color, even though that's not intended. So we need to pay more attention to these kind of things. And also was discovered that doing genetic tests and telling people what would be the diseases and potential causes of death is not so simple, because different companies would come to different conclusions. And in some cases, actually, people who are predicted to be terribly ill feel perfectly healthy. So we need to be careful, actually. And in fact, it may take a lot of data to make a good fit to come up with reliable predictions. In some cases, not possible at all. There might be limits to predictability, as we know from complex systems, chaos theory, weather forecasts, so there are limitations. In some cases, actually, we may not even want to predict and determine the future, because that would actually reduce our capability of innovation. So if we lock in people into filter bubbles and echo chambers and control their behavior, it would be more difficult to think out of the box and be creative and innovative. Now, interestingly enough, it was always promised that we would see paradise on Earth with this digital revolution, but it turns out that the most livable cities are not located in the leading IT countries like the United States, South Korea, or China. So what are we doing wrong with all these data? And there was recently a conference at Wilton Park discussing these kind of issues, and turns out that a technology-driven, a technocratic approach where we would automate cities wouldn't do the job. Because the city is not like a company or a supply chain that you would optimize. This is also a creative space. So you shouldn't determine fully its future. And it's very important when we talk about complex systems that we would take a pluralistic approach, and that would enable collective intelligence, because reality is so complex that no single person can understand it fully. There's no artificial intelligence system or computer system that would fully understand it. So we would need to have platforms that brings together the knowledge and ideas of many people. And that would be online deliberation platforms where all of this knowledge and ideas are put on the table and organized into different perspectives on this complex problem. And that's needed because the complex problem requires different perspectives. Now, the benefit is that if you do this, you would create collective intelligence. Have a look at the Wikipedia article on the Netflix prize, and it turns out that it's not the best individual solution that wins in these kind of settings. That was a predictive analytics task, big data challenge. It's actually the combination of different solutions that outperforms the best individual solutions. So diversity wins, not the best. It's like an array of antennas is actually more powerful than a single big antenna. And in fact, if you want to understand, grasp the beauty and the complexity of a building like this, you cannot actually reflect it by a single picture. You need to have many different perspectives, right? You can understand that immediately. And so there's pluralistic modeling approaches now, where basically different models that would come up with different predictions are overlaid in order to come up with more reliable predictions. And virtual reality technology can help us actually to have these different perspectives on a certain kind of problem, and we would want to look at systems not only from the point of view of economic efficiency, but also how much do these systems take care of fairness and privacy and all these kind of things. And we are now coming up with an entirely new big data approach. The NervousNet platform is an open source project that's dedicated at measuring in real time the situation that is actually there. That means it's like a physical measurement approach rather than putting a lot of data over time into one basket and then trying to identify a pattern in there. We're using smartphones and other Internet of Things sensors to build a global measurement system. It will be decentralized, respecting privacy and all these kind of things, in order to create trust. Because if you want people to participate in such a system, they need to trust that system. And that's why we're giving them the possibility to control those data flows. And should also add something like a personal data store that really allows people to decide who, I mean, what company, for example, would be allowed to use what data for what kind of purposes and how long. That creates trust. And these kind of platforms can actually do a lot of things for you, so they can help to create greater awareness, support better decisions. So for example, map resources and who uses them. We also created a platform for this. You can create new compasses for decision makers that would allow you to see things that you cannot see with the five senses that we have, such as social capital, right? The reputation, solidarity, trust, all those things can now be made visible. And in fact, it's possible to make real-time measurement of what the economists are calling externalities like noise and CO2 and stress and waste of resources and all these kind of things, and could actually jointly come up with a measurement of earthquakes and other kinds of things. So collective measurement becomes important, and we could also think of creating a CERN for society. So there are basically places in the world collecting a lot of data about everything and everyone, and I think it's actually time to open up these kind of systems to create some transparency, which is needed again for trust, to come up with pluralistic perspectives. That means not just have one search algorithm determined by Google that would determine how we would see the world, but have many different choices for search algorithms and participatory opportunities. And that would really increase our trust into these kind of systems. Now, these kind of systems could offer us a data volume, but also functionality depending on our qualification, in order to make sure that there would be a responsible use of these powerful machines. And multidimensional reputation systems could also help to incentivize responsible use. So one very nice example was the Red Balloon Challenge by DARPA that was won by the MIT. And so the point was really to identify those balloons in the air exactly and reliably. And the team that won actually came up with a particular incentive scheme. So incentives are really important to make people and companies basically look at unknown problems and solutions from many different perspectives and make sure that not everyone would be doing the same. So to avoid those herding effects that we have, for example, in financial markets, and we've recently come up with such an incentive scheme that outperforms market largely. So I'm concluding by saying it's the combination of smart technologies and smart people that creates smarter business and society. Thank you very much.